Hi everyone, welcome to a new Spontaneous Conversations. It's been a while. I became a father and that put my life upside down. And so almost no recordings, let alone managing to plan or schedule a call with someone and have one of these beautiful conversations. But very recently I had a session with a wonderful guy and he's the guest of the show today. And I felt, while working with him, towards the end of the session, I was like, hey, we need to do a spontaneous conversation show because he reminded me of how I can work with clients when I'm really grounded. And so it was very beautiful mirroring, but also he does it in a different way, which also gave me new perspective on how to do things. And you will probably notice it, but I can lift a bit of the veil, and that is that my first idea was like, hey, he works like me, but then he speaks much less, which was like really holding a mirror in my own face, like, oh shit, yeah, I should talk less maybe. And yeah, for the rest, I will let him introduce himself and we will just dive into this conversation. As usual, it's not scripted. We haven't decided what we're going to talk about. I even just asked him now and he's like, no, okay, we'll dive into it. Oh, and for the record, my name is Lotfi and I do work with people who want to take a step forward. I work with my intuition, and I realize that a lot of the work I'm doing, a lot of things I'm saying are just channeling from my higher self, and that's also why I do specifically channeling answers. If people have questions, I connect with the higher self of the client, and I get to say out loud the answer that the client needs to hear, that his higher self wants him to hear. So it may not be exactly what you think you want to hear, but it's the best thing you need to hear today. And in one of my future videos, I will share a beautiful example, which was for me an eye-opener regarding that. So stay tuned for an upcoming video. So without further ado, Carmen, please introduce yourself.
All right. Thanks for having me on. It's been beautiful to meet you. It's funny, I haven't been on one of these in a while, so I'm like,
Good.
feeling that thing let's put the really professional introduction on. But to be honest, what I mainly do is I help people with hypnotherapy and shadow work, and that's kind of the core of it. I'm sure as we dive in, we'll go into more of that. A lot of people think hypnotherapy is like, we put a clock here and you go into trance, but it's really nothing like that. It's kind of just using, all aspects of your mind. You spoke about your higher self. That's one way of looking at it. The subconscious mind, the unconscious, right? There's all these different words, but they kind of mean the same thing. We're just allowing the whole mind to be in the therapeutic process rather than just having a very conscious conversation in the sense of like a very logical conversation, but some standard therapy can be. So I suppose that kind of sums up what I do. I haven't actually introduced myself for like a good while, so I think maybe we'll leave it there and then we'll see what comes up in the conversation and see where it goes. And hopefully some fun stuff will come up.
Well, this is not the kind of video that will go as a presentation to a corporation and who are used to a professional elevator pitch. The 3 minutes where you get to say all the important things that will trigger people to say, yeah, I want to do business with you. No, that's not how it works. People watching this, generally they lay back and listen and get a feeling. And I can already feel that energy again. And it's beautiful what you said about the hypnosis, because that was how you were introduced to me by a very dear friend, Anel. And I have a pendulum, by the way, here. But I was like, I make too much noise trying to find it and then dangle it here. I thought like, okay, hypnosis is interesting. I have never been properly hypnotized like you see it in the movies. But I was in hypnosis training once, and it included learning how to hypnotize yourself. And basically it was what you did. When I look back later, I was like, is it because I so easily can go inward that you didn't have to do any specific stuff to hypnotize me? But then I realized, no, the hypnosis is exactly as you described. It's this conscious connection with self. So that's what happens when you meditate, when you connected with nature, when you're really grounded. And I mean, that's how it felt for me. I mean, when I, especially during the winter, want to ground, I fill a warm bath with salt and I lay in it, and then my mind goes everywhere, and at a certain moment, and there's a focus on a certain subject. And that's the thing I need to either process, or it's the information coming up that I need to do something with it, but it's being really here and now and very connected. And that's what I experienced in the session, which was amazing. And me being generally on the other side of the table, it's also interesting, because at the same time I was observing myself, and I had to come back to just be with myself, not just observing, like, oh, that's what I'm doing, oh, that's how I react, oh, that's... On the other hand, it's really interesting if you can do that, because it's like you hold a mirror to yourself while somebody else is holding a mirror. It's like, you know, when you're in these spaces where they have several mirrors, in the end you can see the back of your head, or you see yourself from the side because you have these different mirrors. And they do that in changing rooms in H&M or CNA. So that's also a very interesting perspective to get. I don't know if you had that feedback from more clients, but for me it was a very nice thing to see. It's like getting a 360 of yourself, from the inside and the outside at the same time. And that's an amazing thing that you facilitate, at least for me. So I don't know if more clients experience this.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite different for everyone, but I think what tends to happen as you go deeper with it is you just get that deeper understanding of yourself and all the parts of yourself and everything that's truly going on. There's so much treasure in that, because it starts off and you just think, oh, just Cameron is speaking. Actually, there's 5 different parts working together in different areas and connecting in different ways. When we can view ourselves multi-dimensionally, you know, from all different perspectives, from those parts, but also from the space of looking at those parts, we can get a much different view of who we are and what we want, and we can understand what's really going on, because most things that happen aren't really accidents. You know, a lot of it is on purpose in some ways, even if we don't really want that. And we can see, oh, this part is driving this and this part is driving that, and now I'm looking at it from this perspective. I can see what's really going on. And much that's what we need, is that deeper look and that space to actually see what's happening. And then a lot of problems can drop away. But it's almost that new perspective that is sometimes hard to have when it's just yourself. And that's what was really cool to see. So you have that experience. It was really beautiful.
This is one of the reasons why I recommend everyone to have at least a mentor, but also a coach when you're dealing with something. Even if you're a coach yourself, I mean, you see it with all the successful people, but you also see it with the good coaches and the good mentors. They have one themselves to help them get that perspective again. Because, yeah, that view that I got now, I mean, a few weeks ago in that session, I rarely had it myself. I mean, I had it like once or twice, but not as clear. Or it would be like just a small angle, and you like realize what you're doing, which means you have been working well on yourself, that you start to see how you step in your own traps and stuff. But it's different when somebody really holds those mirrors to you. You can be more relaxed, and that's why you see more. You're not so focused in going a certain direction, because somebody else is guiding you. So somebody else is at least partially driving that ride for you, guiding you. It's like being on the water, so you go with the flow, and that person making sure you don't hit the rocks on the side. I mean, that's the only way how I can describe it now a little bit, because in the end, the flow is you and your soul walking that path that you came to walk, which we divert from because of all the stuff that we're experiencing in life and all the distractions we create for ourselves. But then in a session, you go back to the center, which is the thing that I would say we work on when we meditate, when we do yoga, when we ground and stuff like that, is to come back to that center. But it's hard on your own. That's why a lot of people also love to work together in groups, to do things in groups, to meditate together, because you boost the energy. Even yoga, and we're not talking about the yoga where you put your underwear on top of your pants to look sexy and look what I can do, I can put my leg here and whatever. Not that kind of yoga, because a few years ago I heard that the real yoga is a lifestyle, is not the yoga that we have here in the West. But all these things, they are there to come back to your center line. And I guess that is our mission in life. But then we think that our mission is to take care of the family and make money and have a good retirement, have a big home, a big car and whatever. But the centering, coming back to our true selves and being able to act from there, at least that's what's coming to me, that is our mission here in life. I don't know if you have a different perspective on this or something to add.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful what you said. I think there's a lot of variety in that as well. And even we can view actually an amazing teacher once who would just say, life is meditation and meditation is life. And that comes with all of these practices. And so I don't think it's even about just coming into that center and seeing the world as a distraction, seeing money or business or family or relationships as a distraction. I think that can be a mistake. I think it's all, there's, in many ways, from the highest perspective, if you're working in a conscious way with what you're doing in a business, it can be just as spiritual in our quotations as meditation, right? Obviously, that's a really relativistic perspective because there is a difference, and meditation has benefits that you probably won't get from that. However, from one perspective, it can be kind of similar. And so I think it's almost like allowing that energy, whatever we want to call that energy, the true self, our essence, light, God, whatever we want to refer to it as. It's almost like allowing that to be with us and to be us always. And then we go about life as we were before, but from a new place. Rather than coming back to it, it's just living with it. It's who we are. And I think that's why this work can be so dynamic. We might have this part of ourselves that is obsessed with money and the business. But as we heal that, maybe we find out that part of ourselves has a beautiful desire to be creative and to be in the world in a powerful, maybe entrepreneurial way, right? But beforehand, it was traumatized, and its only focus was, I need the money, I need this for safety or for value or whatever its goals were. And now it can come from a new place, from this space that we're speaking about. And that part can go about with all its creative intentions via this energy. And then we see amazing things happening in the world where people come up with incredible ideas. And, it's not just about them being in the spiritual land, but bringing that into the world. And I think that can be a beautiful way of living the life, of bringing it all together and not seeing it as separate. And we still have our practices. And sometimes we can get caught up in the traps of being like in the world and stuck to it. And we can get caught up with, oh, we need the money or girls or whatever it is. But if we can go about the fullness of life from this space, whatever this space means, because that in itself is kind of dynamic and it's complex in many ways, but it's also super simple. I think that could be a really cool way of viewing it, and a really wonderful way to walk through life. So that's all I have to say about that.
Really beautiful. You touched several things, that several reactions that popped up. But the main thing that kept coming to me as an example is this NGO that I support. And during the crazy pandemic we had, I lost most of my business. And at a certain moment I was like, okay, I'm earning money, but I need more money because I need to eat. And it was interesting because I had a talk with my best friend, and 2 days later she calls me, hey Lotfi, take a few bags and come downstairs. I took a few bags, came downstairs, and there she was with the trunk of the car full of food. And so there's this NGO, for the Romanians it's called Fundație Unu și Unu, which means One and One, the One and One Foundation. And what it does is collecting food that's close to expiration date and then redistributing it amongst people in need. And I was praying for money to buy food, but then just food came to me. And that gave me that peace of mind to continue with my life without being afraid of not eating enough. On the other hand, I was like, okay, maybe it will help me lose some weight. So I was trying to see the positive into a crappy situation. And from that point on, I started to support this NGO. And that's already for several years now. It's also through that NGO that I met my girlfriend, the mother of my child. And I met a lot of other beautiful people. I even worked for 1 year with refugees from the Ukrainian war, because I live in Romania, and so we have a lot of refugees. And it was all coming from that. And that work I did for free, but it fed my soul so much, and it even helped me generate money in another way. But the point is that this NGO was started by a priest who saw a need and was very good in networking. So he started bringing people together, and that's how he was getting the food and be able to distribute it. And we have been expanding the business. The guy died 2 years ago, and we had to restructure because it was the old way. I know people, and that's how I do everything. So there was nothing written down and stuff like that. So we lost a lot of the business. So we started rebuilding, but also restructuring. And that's one part I love to do. And I had been pushing from behind the scenes to do that. So part of my creativity, but also everything I learned in the corporate world, I could use in a creative way in doing something beautiful, helping people. Not to feel like, oh, look at me, what I've been doing. No, because it's really feeding me to do this and to see the smiles on people's faces when they get some nice food, because sometimes it's fancy food what we get, and so people get something really nice. And often it's the children who have the biggest smile because like, yeah, we get this stuff. And yeah, it's not always the healthiest stuff, but then beggars cannot be choosers, or I don't know how the expression exactly goes, but you get the point. But we do make a difference in people's lives. And through the work, I met a lot of wonderful volunteers. I was last week at a birthday party where I would never have landed, and had an amazing evening, meeting again new people, because that was the birthday of one of the volunteers, which I became friends with, who helped us in the process with getting all the administrative stuff arranged when our son was born, because things can be complicated here in Romania. So a little wish can result in a complete transformation of life. That is, I believe, what you were sharing, the energy flowing, I would say, through the heart, and then from the heart into the solar plexus chakra, and from there it goes into action. And then we are in line with what we are supposed to do, at least in this moment. When I sometimes sit and dream about what would I do if I would get 1 million or 10 million, it's always the NGO that pops up immediately, like, okay, there are things I want to improve there, I want to expand certain things, and so I start to see these things. So that means, I realize now, this is part of my path in this life. Something I didn't realize many years ago. I always thought in NGO I need to donate money. Well, donating time and your expertise can be much more valuable than just donating time. So I would say, maybe sit and wonder, what would you do if you would have a lot of money? How could you really feed your soul? And then things will pop up, ideas will come up, and before you know it, you can actually start walking into that direction, even if you don't have the money, but maybe you'll be good at generating the money. One of the things I'm doing is now fundraising, getting companies to direct money to us. It's very tough here, but at least I still get to talk with people, and maybe they donate products, which is totally fine too. But sit with this, meditate on it. I often say, put the question and then have a meditation, and the answer will come during the meditation or after. But there's so many ways how we can do something beautiful. It doesn't need to be charity, it can be anything. Maybe it's a business idea. I got very much inspired years ago by Richard Branson, who started most of his businesses because there was a frustration. There was a shitty service somewhere. And it was like, okay, this should be able to be done in a much better way so that the client is really happy, and in an affordable way as well. And that's how he started many businesses. At a certain point he had like 500 businesses. And that was an inspiration for me. And that's also how I started doing my coaching at a certain point. After having had a breakthrough workshop, where I had a big breakthrough myself, and then I helped the guy in his next workshop, helping other people having breakthroughs. And in the end, like from the 50 people, I saw that majority of people went back to their old lives, didn't really manage to pull through. And I realized that I was one of the few, because I had a mentor. And so when I was on the other side of that wall that I broke through, I was like, and now what? How do I navigate this world? And I would call Harvey. Hey, Harv, I'm here now, but I don't know what to do. And he said, and he would ask me questions, and it would help me find my way. And so from that moment, I decided, when I got the realization, if I do a breakthrough workshop, and later it became, if I work with a person in one-on-one, I will make sure there's always a comeback moment to help the person evaluate where am I standing now, how are things going, am I able to integrate this in my life, and if not, what kind of support do I need? And that's why for a very long time I refused to do single sessions. I was like, no, I do 5 sessions, because probably in the first or the second session, boom, they have that big aha, But then after that, how you implement. So that was also me doing something from what I deeply felt, got inspired, and then I started applying it. And that shaped in a very big way my way of working with clients. And not just on the coaching, I started implementing that in anything I do. Always have that moment to check, are things still rolling properly? And if not, what do we need to change? And for me, it's not important that people continue working with me per se, but at least find someone who will help you to walk that path that you're on, whether it's in your personal life or in your business or whatever it is. If you have this transformation, it's important. That's why I see so many people after realizations going back to the old because they don't know how to navigate the new. So let that be a lesson. I hope that somebody listening now is like, oh, wait, maybe I should talk to the person who helped me or to someone else who can guide me in this thing. So, wow, I didn't think all this would come out from what you said.
It's beautiful, man. Lots of wonderful things just shared.
Yeah, it's that simple, I realize. It's that simple. We just need to be a little bit more conscious of where we stand and then look around, and then we will see what needs to be done, but also what can be done, what is available to us. Because often we're blocked by the fear of, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know how. But then sometimes it's sufficient to just, we say in Dutch, throw up the ball. Somebody will catch it. Just make a post, social media today, and say like, hey guys, I have this idea, I need help. Actually, I did that in a business event. I got 3 minutes to talk about the NGO and ask for help. Gee, I got 10, 15 people coming to me in the following 2 hours with ideas. Some were great, some were I couldn't really use, and some people offered the time to help me learn, use a certain system, CRM system and everything to actually boost the NGO. And some people didn't know me. Some people knew me because I had invested time in getting to know people, which is a very important thing that I actually feel I need to share here. Networking is not so scary, it's just getting to know new people and let them getting to know you. That was the main reason I got to do the pitch, because I knew the guy organizing the event and he got to like me. But the first people who came to me were the people who knew me already, but did not per se knew all the all the things I was doing. But because we had the connection, even if it was just casual talk, which is mainly what I do on networking, talk about whatever comes up. You get a connection. When there is a connection, people are more likely to support in giving their time, giving their insights, maybe products, services, or recommend you to somebody that they know who can help you. Just like my friend Anel recommended you to me. She was very enthusiastic about the session she had with you and said, Lotfi, you should talk to this guy. He does hypnosis and stuff like that. Blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but it was a feeling I got like, okay, I really need to talk to this guy. So I contacted you. And a month and a half later, we're sitting here having this conversation, inspiring a lot of people to do many different things. And it was all because she and I would build a connection. She had an experience, she shared, and that's how I got to have an experience, and now all the viewers get to have an experience. So it's that simple. Everything is connected, but we need to be open to see that, to allow maybe crazy things to happen in your life, something you've never done. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh, you could die. It's always the example I give, but Dying is not a problem, not for the person dying. I mean, all your problems are gone. You're dead. You're not here anymore. It's people stay behind. You're like, oh, I will miss him. Well, it's simply because they don't realize they can connect with you on soul level. I mean, some people I have had a better connection with them being dead than being alive, because I could not talk to them properly. But I can talk to their souls, and then beautiful conversations happen. So the morbid side aside, so I really encourage everyone to just see how you can connect with people. Not with the mindset, I need to get something, but how can I open my horizon to meeting new people? And I have plenty of examples I can give on wonderful holiday I had in Greece, because I just was open to connect with people, and they introduced me to others, and before I knew it, I had a whole group of people I was going out with, and I got to know a lot about the culture. And other times I experienced beautiful things simply because I was open to connect with people. And most of the beautiful healing sessions I've had in the past 20 years, yeah, it's 20 years this year. Yeah, it was September 2004. All of that was simply because I connected with people. First a client, then friend of a friend, and then somebody would recommend me somebody else, but there was a connection, so they recommend. And then slowly I got deeper and deeper into the whole personal development, the whole working on myself, then with energy, then more spiritual, and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I met also a lot of my friends of today through this simple way of connecting, whether it's at a networking event or at a spiritual event. And the richness of my life today is the people I have in my life. It's not the physical objects I have, but it's the people I have who help me have experiences, who help me grow more self-confident, aware, like I'm talking a lot again, who help me make a difference in other people's lives by making a difference in my life. Often without asking, but sometimes when I do ask for help. Another important thing I feel to share, it's important to ask for help. And this brings me to how Carmeron works. One thing I really liked was you do offer your first session for free if you feel it's the right person who's motivated to really be serious, to give a taste. And that's basically like when you go to the market and you're gonna buy fresh cheese. They give you a piece. Maybe not in all countries, but in Holland they do that, and here in Romania they do that. You get to taste. And you're like, oh, this I like. I'm gonna buy a piece. And this is something that a lot of people are afraid of doing, handing out something for free. And you also do not do it in a way that's like, okay, now you tasted a piece of my cookie. Now I want you to buy. Now you need to feel guilty, you need to buy. That is a fear-based approach that a lot of people do, and that's how let's say the imbalanced sales is going. But the good salespeople don't tell you what to do. They let you taste and make it difficult for you not to choose to take the thing, because they let you have the experience. And that's a beautiful way how you work, and I really like that. I'm not saying you should do all the sessions with everyone for free. That's not what I'm saying. Maybe he'll charge you $1 million because he knows you can afford it, and that's how we can help a lot of other people for free. But it's about creating a possibility, creating the space for something to grow. Yes, we all know this picture of this plant that comes out of the crack in the concrete, but even the crack is space that was created so that something can bloom. And the work we do is about you creating the space for yourself. I needed to be open to get a mirror in my face, which can be really scary sometimes. So I need to create a space first for Anel to tell me about you, and then also to receive something for free without feeling guilty about I need to do something. And us organizing this is not me like, oh, I need to do something in return. It was more like, oh wow, this is so beautiful, we need to talk about this. We need to have a session. I felt the energy, your energy. I was like, okay, we're gonna have a beautiful talk. So that's how simple things can grow, can be created. So to those watching, look at how you can create space for yourself to get opportunities to come in. By coming in, mean probably just to see what the opportunities are, but also for people to come into your life to enrich your experience. And at the same time, be open to enrich other people's experiences too, because you may have much more to give than you think. Even if you're very sure you have nothing to offer, I guarantee you there are things you can offer. Even if it's just you sitting and listening to someone.
100%. I think that's very, very true what you just said, and it's wonderful hearing you share that.
How did you get on this path? Let me be the individual for a moment now.
Yeah, that's wonderful you were sharing. For me, it started a good while ago. My first thing was I was like a teenager and I wanted to be better with girls. And so I'm like, all right, well, better with girls. I wanted to just basically.
Okay. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty much the start of it. And, you know, I was like, it wasn't coming from some spiritual endeavor or healing. It was just a really like normal thing for someone at 15, 16, 17 to want to do. And so I started to learn from different people, and I was fortunate enough to learn from people who are more holistic, as if anyone's gone into the dating community, there's a big variety of people, and some can take you down a path that is very unhealthy. Some can still have their own shadows, but can introduce healthy aspects. And I was really fortunate enough to be introduced to things like meditation and eventually therapy or hypnotherapy down the line on my quest to just become better. And it was also, there was a bunch of instructors who were teaching this, and they had this kind of rock star appeal, and they were traveling and they were with these beautiful, amazing women, and they had this big fan base. And so I was kind of attracted to that lifestyle as well at the start. I wanted all of that.
Especially at that age.
But yeah, exactly. And so I went down that path for a few years, and it was really good fun.
So you had a big fan base as well, and all these girls around you.
I didn't get the fan base thing. The company I was a part of, we were kind of, yeah, we weren't as popular. We had some wonderful clients, and you get a little bit of that because people start to view you as like, oh man, this guy. And it's a bit of a weird feeling at the start. I really enjoyed it, but after a while.
Well, you are that guy, by the way. You do have that energy. In a good way, not that the women will come and all like, I'm talking about that energy that makes you feel comfortable, so you open up and things start to happen.
Thank you, man. But anyway, so I was on this journey, but what really started to happen is I eventually became part of this company, and I met a wonderful mentor of mine, and he had been on a similar journey, but he was kind of really at the end of his. And his entire goals at that point were more centered around something called integral theory. But what that includes, integral theory, is this beautiful way of viewing human development where you integrate spirituality, therapeutic work, as well as psychological development. And there's a lot of complexity to that, but the essence is you want to include everything, right? You don't want to be an absolutist. It's about what are the really incredible parts of this type of therapy, or how can this meditation be used? How do they come together in an overarching system of psychology and human development, right? And so he was so into that. And at the time, I was like 19 or 20 at this point. It's like 4 years ago. I was like, yeah, okay, that stuff's okay, cool. Is it going to help me get girls? Like, that's all I was really worrying about. But anyway, he kind of took me through the back door and was like, yeah, okay, you can try and you can focus on doing that. But if you do that, this is going to help. And eventually what happened is the kind of initial intention of meeting girls just dropped away. It wasn't super interesting anymore. I kind of fulfilled that intention, and also got to a few deeper parts of myself that were craving that to begin with. And I started getting much more into the meditation, much more into therapeutic or hypnotherapeutic work. And that became far more fascinating to me. And at this time, I was fortunate enough to live with a Buddhist nun, which was a very interesting experience about 4 years ago. And so there was this kind of house we used to call.
Because I only
Yeah.
see Buddhist monks. I've never actually seen a Buddhist nun anywhere on the internet.
Yeah, she was a Buddhist nun. No hair as well. Even the nuns were bald. Amazing, amazing human being. And we were in this kind of apartment. We were actually living in Poland at the time, of all places. And this apartment, we nicknamed it HQ. But it was the craziest group of people. It was me, who was like this 20-year-old. I literally finished university on the Monday and then moved out to Poland on the Wednesday, right? It was really fast. And then I was living with this amazing mentor of mine who was so deep in this integral theory and hypnotherapeutic work. And he had also had a ton of his own spiritual experiences. And then we were living with this wonderful client of ours who was a professional poker player. And he was just this really cool human being, but also like he had no fear around things like money. For him, like if he lost all of his money, he'd be like, just a Wednesday. But then he'd make, like he just had this really amazing view of money that I had never seen before, of where it was just purely paper to him. It was like a tool. And it was a really empowering view of the world where he just didn't have this worry of like, if I lose all my money, it's a big problem. He'd like, I've done that 5 times. And then the other 2 people that were in this house, there was this really great friend of mine who's now also a hypnotherapist. And he was the same age as me, or similar age. And so we kind of been on this journey together in a really beautiful way. He's an amazing human being. And then finally we had the Buddhist nun, and she was living with us. And she met my mentor for 2 weeks. And then he invited her to come and live with us in Poland and to run retreats. And it's like, who accepts that? She met this guy online, right? Who is an amazing human being, but she didn't know this. And she's like, okay, I've known him for 2 weeks. He's asking me to fly from India to Poland and to run retreats there. And everybody in her,
but here.
Yeah, everybody in her community, even all the monks and stuff, were saying, it's probably a bad idea. She's like, nah, I'm good. And she comes and lives with us, and she was this amazing person. And if you're imagining, like, if you try and imagine a Buddhist nun, she'll be nothing like you expect. She was an incredible human being, but had a really rich, dynamic personality. And so she could be very strong-willed too. And so it was quite an interesting experience being with her. So anyway, I'm in this HQ, this house, and every day is like super slow, but also extremely fast. And I remember always commenting like, how has it only been 3 months? But also, it's also been, it feels like it's been 3 days, but it's been like 10 years at the same time. So we were in this really rich environment for about 2 years, where all we were doing is just studying hypnotherapy, integral theory, shadow work, meditation, doing tons of retreats, lots of meditation. And it was just this really beautiful, rich environment. And eventually, unfortunately, the Buddhist nun, and we call her sister, so I refer to her as sister. She she had stage 4 cancer, which was really unfortunate, but it also led to one of the most beautiful experiences of my life so far, which is so she was in a hospice, and this time we were actually in Hungary, in Budapest. We were living there, all of us, and she was in the hospice, which was very challenging, but also at the same time, she had no fear. The doctor told her she had stage 4 cancer, and she was like, oh no, the doctor told her she was terminal, and she just bursts out laughing. She's like, yeah, of course I'm terminal. You're terminal too. He's terminal. She's terminal. Like, we're all terminal. What are you talking about? You think you're going to live forever? Like, she kind of had this mindset, but it wasn't even a mindset, because it's not like it was a belief system. It was much deeper than that, because she wasn't convincing herself. She wasn't going there like, I'm going to choose the positive mindset. It wasn't something that she had in an intellectual way. It was something that every core of her being just experienced, right? From the feeling as well as the intellectual. And so she was this amazing human being. And to be up close, we would read the Majjhima Nikaya, which is it's the middle length discourses of a Buddha, which is very different to the Bible, the Quran. It's not meant to be in that way, but that's probably the closest thing people who haven't dived into Buddhism would refer to it as, right? But essentially, it's full of stories of the Buddha's teachings, and it's got many beautiful things. And we would read 2 verses. There was one called 6 Sets of 6, which is basically, it's funny, I haven't talked about this a while, but the 6 Sets of 6 is about if I can remember it, it's really understanding the senses and what creates personality, right? It's like, well, what am I? Am I the eyes? If I remove the eyes, what am I? If I remove the ears, what am I? Right? If I have eyes, but there's nothing to see, then do I have eyes? Like, it's kind of questioning this. And the 6 sets of 6, 6 sets of 6 is this long discourse, which is takes like an hour to read. And we would just read that over and over to her at the hospice, because she had this student of hers. She was about 74 years old, and then there was a student who was about 50 years old, who was a senior monk, and he was teaching us how to help her die. And it was this beautiful experience. And it's interesting, so speaking about something that seems to be morbid, yet the only experience I have is so much uplift and almost joy. She experienced that too. It was a
I'm
beautiful
feeling the joy
experience.
now. I can
Yeah,
feel it. I see it, and here I don't understand it, but I know it
yeah,
here. It makes all
yeah.
sense to me.
And so we went through this experience all together. It was like me and the other 3 guys, and we were all really close at this point. It was kind of like a family. She was almost like a grandmother in this way. We'd been really close. It wasn't it was never a real, how do you say, conservative relationship we had with sister. It was because she was living with us, and she was quite an eccentric personality.
It was just part of the family.
And yeah, exactly. And so we were going through this, and we'd read the 6 sets of 6, and then we'd also read, it's called the Anathapindika Sutta, which is about how this, it's not a monk, I think he's how this person in the story dies with the monk present, right? And how the monk guides him into death. And how he's like, I will not cling to the eyes. My consciousness is not dependent on the eyes. It's like, I will not cling to my ears. My consciousness is not dependent on the ears. I'm not clinging to sound. It's about not clinging to the human form, right? Going beyond that. I'm not even clinging to the mind. Consciousness is not dependent on the mind. And as you go through that, it uplifts your soul. But the reason we were doing it is Sister, unfortunately, at this point, she was in a minor coma. And so she'd come in and out of it at this point. When we started, we were able to get worse and worse. And eventually she was in a full coma. But we were encouraged to read to her anyway. And we would notice, even though she's in a coma, right? Supposedly, I don't know what the science is on it, but she's in a full coma. And she would actually smile, right? She couldn't move anything. She would smile. And then I remember one experience. This was about a few days before she passed away. And at the end of reading, you haven't done this in a while, so I couldn't recite it, but you say like a Buddhist prayer. And I remember my mentor, who's an amazing human being as well, he was going through the prayer, and he messes up the prayer a little bit. Right? Okay, and sister, this is completely as accurate as I remember it. As much like there's no me trying to hyperbolize this. This is exactly how I remember it. She'd been in a full coma for weeks now. She hadn't moved apart from maybe a smile. And my mentor makes a mistake, right, in the prayer. And she gets up and is like, no, that's not how you do it. And then she does the prayer. And then she goes back into the coma. And then a few days later, she passes away. And so her last word was just correcting my mentor and teaching him how to do the prayer. And it kind of symbolizes her story of she was just this amazing teacher. Such a complicated person in many ways, but an incredible teacher. And after that experience, it was a really interesting thing. We were all part of his company, and we all loved and were really like a family, more than a company. But professionally, it didn't make sense for us to really be together. But yet we had all come together for such a long time, right? And so a week later, after Sister passes away, it also becomes apparent that this company that we're all part of, that we should all go separate directions. And, this conversation had arisen for so long. And we didn't consciously realize that it was Sister that was kind of keeping it together. But looking back at it, that was kind of the thing that was keeping us all together. And then since then, this was about a year ago now, we've all gone and taken all that training, the Buddhist meditation, the hypnotherapy, the shadow work, the integral theory, and gone in separate directions on how we teach it and how we hold space and heal people. But we've all done something similar in this beautiful way. And so that was kind of a bit of a long run, but that's kind of how I'm here. And I'm just, even looking back, it's like, what a amazing experience to have. And it was also being so close to death in a beautiful way, not in an afraid way. And there's grief that arises, but grief is quite different to fear and sadness and guilt that we can experience around death. Grief is, Sister would say, grief comes in like waves, right? It just arises. It's natural. Grief is, there's a missing of someone in the physical sense, right? And you can go beyond that and connect to them in a deeper way as well. But the grief can arise from death. I experienced that, but I didn't experience fear, and I didn't really experience any guilt or shame or sadness in the sense of like a depressive feeling. It was just, there was a grief that came and went away, but there was also an uplifting, a joy that came with that experience. And that's probably one of the most incredible experiences I was grateful enough to have.
I'm a bit emotional, and it's from a place of joy. When you were telling me, I was like, this is how I want to die.
Yeah,
I don't want
me
to die
too.
today, but it's like, yeah. And I hope that I will have, by that time, this kind of people around me. Whether it's the people who are around me today, for them to grow, to be able to make that possible. Or, I mean, I used to say I will be at least 93 like my grandfather. So in the coming 40 plus years, I'm turning 52 now, yeah, that these people come on my path. So it crossed my mind the death of my mom that I lost when I was 24 years old, which didn't go that way because none of us was in that place. It crossed my mind my mentor, whom I don't know if he's still alive or not. I know he got Alzheimer's in 2016. It became bad. I know people who died recently and none of them died in peace. And I really wish for people to be able to die in this way. Not to be in fear of what may happen after death, or that, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, to have all the regrets. I mean, with the death of my mom, I said to my father, hey, at least she didn't suffer. By the time they discovered she had cancer, she died the next day. I mean, they redid the test because they were like, oh, this is impossible. It cannot be this bad. It must be an error. Let's test again. But she didn't even live to hear about the results. So that was a consolation for us. She didn't suffer. But what you described really moved me. And it all made total sense what you described. It was like, everything was like, yeah. Whether it is that she woke up to speak, and for me that was like, yeah, people, whether don't die immediately, it's because they still have stuff to process, or to allow for the people staying behind to process, to be ready for the departure. So she smiling is another confirmation for me, because I know that people can hear when you speak to them when they're in a coma, even in their sleep, that she was listening, but she was doing her own thing. It was like a super deep meditation. That was the word that came up to me when you were describing that she was in a coma. I was like, yeah, it was a super deep meditation. And so she could come up and say what she had to say, probably with that same smile on her face of that wisdom. Or like sometimes we say, the smart ass woke up and he had to say his thing. And like, oh, it's like, okay, now I can go back to sleep. And also, what was the second thing? Yeah, you guys parting ways. It is how it goes in life. Life is like, from my perspective, a long journey. You're in this train, you step on a train, and sometimes you change trains, and then you have passengers. Or let's say today, most people are flying. You get on an airplane, it has a stopover. Some people get out, some people get in, and then you may change airplanes at the next airport, and some people may change with you. Some people literally go from A to B to the final destination with you, and some people, they come on and then they hop off later. And when you're together in that train or airplane, you may have a conversation. You exchange experiences, whatever kind of experiences they are. 20, 30 years later, you may still remember that short conversation you had with that person, because something happened, something clicked, you got an insight, you learned something, you shared something, you had a moment. And you continue. But there is this impact. And like I said, for me it makes total sense. You came together, she moved in, she became the glue, she shared with her presence, which can encompass whatever she said or what she didn't say. Sometimes just enough to be somewhere to change the energy, to make it easier for people to open up or to share or whatever. And then after that is done, you're ready to meet a new teacher, a new mentor. Even if you're becoming a teacher yourself, you still have your life lessons, but you also start to share your life lessons. There was also a reason why I started coaching very consciously. I was like, all the stuff I got, I need to share this with others. This is so amazing. It helped transforming my life from burnout after burnout, being stuck, being in fear, no self-confidence, and all the crap that was happening in my life, to being able to breathe again, but being constantly exhausted, things like that. That's how it started for me. And then after having learned more profound things and having had beautiful experience, there was more reason for me to start to share. And yes, it can be painful when people leave your life. When my mentor got Alzheimer's, I cried a lot. I still miss him. I still miss the conversations we had because we were close friends. There was a lot of laughter. And I do not need his recognition anymore, which popped up in our session. But I miss the things he would say, the perspectives he would bring. But he lives on with me because he was the main inspiration for me to do the work I'm doing today. I'm laughing now because I'm observing myself. I'm like, yeah, this is a good moment for you listeners to realize who helped you make a big change in your life, who inspired you. It's often the people we expected the least from, or that we see for the first time and we don't get them, who end up really making a difference in our lives. Sometimes it's that horrible boss. He had to be horrible for you to learn to stand up for yourself, or it's that guy that you don't get because you hear about the job he does, and then later you realize there's a completely different person in there too, who does something amazing, something magical, not just that work that he does. And then things start to happen in your life. Like those conversations I had with total strangers in a train, in an airplane, in a bus. If we are open to connect with the people who come on our path, if we are open to be in the here and now, in that space where we are, if we are open to connect with ourselves and combine these three, then life is very different. Very beautiful things can happen. What is the one or maybe two things you would like to share if you're laying on your deathbed and like, okay, I'm going, but my last breath, I want to share something to those that I love. What would it be today? I mean, tomorrow it will probably be something else, but what would it be today?
It's a beautiful question. And also thank you so much for sharing that about your mentor. Beautiful to see. There's not that much that I'd want to share on my deathbed. In some ways I feel kind of, in that moment it's more like just being in peace and enjoying that moment of actually passing on, I think would be a beautiful way to be. If we're talking about more for others and to help others, what I would share. I mean, I think the main thing is I'd love to just tell the people in my life, whether they are at this time, that I love them, people that actually care about. I think it's important. And I think that would encapsulate most of it. I think there's lots of phrases and wonderful advice we can give. I think everyone's on their own journey in many ways. And I think at that point, pardon me, best thing we can do is just tell the people we love them. And then go about the rest of our journey. And smile. Smile as you die. Sister did that, and she told us to do that. And so smile and tell people you love them. Yeah, not telling them. You know, it's like advice, all of that. I think that goes in some ways, because that's kind of like, it's amazing and wonderful and so helpful. But I think in those last moments, it comes to something possibly even deeper, and I think that's as simple as just saying that you love the people you love and smiling on your way out, and letting that be it. And seeing if you can have joy or peace as you move on to whatever's next. Maybe. That's what I'd like to do.
Thank you. I know it's not a very conventional question to ask the way I put it, but
beautiful question.
It just came up. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Before we say see you next time, where can people find you if they got inspired, want to know more about you, or want to connect with you, have a session with you, talk with you, maybe hear your stories? Where should people look for you?
The main two places, just Facebook and Instagram. It's just my name, Cameron Thomas Borthwick, and I think you'll put the links somewhere. And then just the best thing is to just message me directly on either Instagram or Facebook, whatever's best for you. and we can just get into contact and see what happens. I think that's the best way to go about it.
That's what I did.
Yeah,
It worked out
exactly.
beautifully.
That's a beautiful thing. So you never know what can happen.
Definitely we don't know. I have a big imagination, but I could not see this conversation. I mean, I knew it would be beautiful. I knew that in here. I didn't expect so many different things coming up, and
it's wonderful, man. Thank you for giving the space for this to happen.
Thank you for being here, for taking the time. I really appreciate that.
You too, man.
I want to thank everyone for... No, I'm not going to thank you for sitting and listening. You should thank yourself for having sat here with us and suck up all the information, all the insights, the life experiences that we shared, because you did this for you, not for us. And I hope you, if you're not doing this regularly, that you'll do this more regularly. Find people that can inspire you and just listen, because it's because of talks that I watched that I decided to do my own talks. And we always get inspired by people who are open to share. And this is something that doesn't cost anything. It's free resources that are available. We just need to be open to receive. And this is me receiving a beautiful guest, because I'm open to receive. And then I have the courage to ask, hey, would you like to come to my show? And that's how things go in life. So you thank yourself for having been here. I'm thanking Carmeron for joining me on this amazing journey.
Thank you, man.
And I'm grateful to myself for having had the courage to ask after so long to do this again. So this is me thanking myself. There will be more talks coming. So subscribe to the channel, and you can click that bell. I'll probably put something on the screen so that you remember what to do. And I promise you there will be some interesting people coming in the coming months. I already talked with two. One is scheduled, one I had to reschedule because a friend is visiting. That's totally fine. I don't need to do every 2 days a show. Go check out Carmeron. By the way, do you have on one of your channels talks like this, or monologues, or podcasts, or something like that you share?
There's a few videos, yeah, but I'm not doing anything really that consistently.
Okay, so go find those videos. Go find those videos. I will go look for them too. Actually, I saw one this morning very shortly. I saw that you had one where you talk spontaneously. I saw. And yeah, thanks again, and have a beautiful day, beautiful afternoon for you. And for everyone watching, go get inspired and do something beautiful with what you've sucked up today. And let it integrate also. Take a moment. Don't run away to the next video or something. Just take a moment to let it sink in. Let it anchor. And if you have any questions to one of us, just contact us. Our contact details are in the description. And asking for help is a sign of strength. I cannot say this enough. It's not a weakness, it's you being courageous to actually stand up for yourself and say, hey, I need something so I can move forward. And through that you'll make a difference in other people's lives, and you'll be an inspiration to others. You'll be probably a mentor at some point. So do it. Ask for help. Whether it's to us or to somebody else, but do it. It's important that you take good care of yourself. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Like, subscribe, and share.